Baldur's Gate 3 is coming, if not already here by the time you watch this video. It's a tremendous game built from the ground up to engage and immerse you in its story and gameplay, to some shocking extents at some points. Your decision making will be incredibly important in Baldur's Gate 3, not just in combat as you navigate tactical battlefields, but in storytelling as well. I believe this is going to be one of the best RPGs ever made, and I get that feeling from having played way too many hours in early access. But there's some important beginner tips that I want to share with you to make the most out of your journey, especially if you had a bit more self-restraint than I did and you actually didn't play the early access. So let's get right into it and talk about some of the basics that are going to make the most out of your game as you jump into it for the first time. First is going to be that choices matter. You don't always actually have to fight. You can make decisions that will have lasting impacts in this game, in places that you don't always think they will be. It's not just decisions to move to a more advantageous position in combat or roll a ranged attack. There will be countless interactions where saying or doing the right or wrong thing will alter the way the story plays out for you. Essentially, this is the tip that is basically saying, be careful what you say and do, probably more careful than what you say and do online. Because while you are shrouded in anonymity online, not so much in Baldur's Gate 3, they remember the shit you do. Approach each interaction carefully. Some may feel like fluff, but lead into side quests or deep stories. One of the most beautiful things about all the painstaking work that Larian put into their games is how impactful your decisions are. There's no greater indicator of this than a spoiler-free, or at least as spoiler-free as I can, get a little personal anecdote from my time in early access. A friendly conversation which became, let's say, a little too friendly, ended with the untimely demise of my character. And no, it wasn't a jump to combat where I got to defend myself. I died. In a cutscene, I died. That is the kind of things that you have to look out for in this game. Your decisions matter, perhaps more than in most of the games, if not any game that you played before. Next is going to be how you impact those decisions. Ability and dice rolls. One of the things that will be influencing your decisions are your ability scores as well as their associated skills like Arcana, History, Nature, etc. In this way, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to work a lot like its inspiration, Dungeons & Dragons. Get ready to see a lot of d20s and hopefully not roll too many ones, because a key component of Baldur's Gate 3 is the dice rolling system. Thankfully, it's gotten a little less punishing than it used to be in the very beginning of early access, but it's still important to understand dice rolls and how to modify them with skills, buffs, and ability scores. As you can see here on screen, my intellect and the associated skills are adding to my dice roll, making it easier to succeed. While they don't guarantee success as the required score is higher than the minimum dice roll of 1 plus my additions, they do at least help it. They make it easier to win, essentially. There will be spells in the game for your own character or your companion characters that will be able to also modify the skills. So it's not just your own abilities, but also the abilities of your companions as well that can have a big influence on how you succeed in these very common interactions. I think within just the first couple hours, there was the countless numbers, probably like 10, 15 times I rolled the dice. This is a big part of the game. But what does each score do? Let's break them down in their base function and their attached skill checks. Strength is responsible for melee weapon damage, and it increases your carrying capacity for all the loot you want to hoard. It impacts skill checks for athletics, things like climbing and jumping, as well as miscellaneous strength checks you'll find in game, like breaking free of bonds, forcing open a door, or rolling a boulder out of the way. Dexterity, like strength, influences weapon damage, but specifically ranged weapon damage or finesse weapons. You know, the ones that would require a little more tact to use, as long as you have the relevant traits, that is. It's also responsible for improved stealth. For the monks or barbarians out there going without armor, Dex will also be your primary AC modifier. Dexterity will come in handy with more subtle physical skills like acrobatics, which could be keeping your feet on unsteady or slippery ground, or across a narrow pathway. Sleight of hand when you want to part someone from their belongings without their knowledge, and of course stealth when you want to part someone from their belongings without their knowledge. Dexterity is going to be used generally when the nimbleness of your fingers or the responsiveness of your body is important. Constitution is straightforward. This is your health and resistance. Like every attribute, it'll have some saves to it as well, and like the rest, they're all kind of logical. Think of things that would require a strong constitution, like holding your breath, or surviving in inhospitable conditions. The next 3 attributes all kind of work together, and there's a lot of skills associated with them. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. They're all primary stats for different casters, but each has secondary benefits as well. Intelligence is tied to several knowledge skills like arcana, history, investigation, nature, and religion. Wisdom, on the other hand, helps everyone with perception checks, animal handling, insight, medicine, and survival. Charisma is going to have a major impact on how you converse with others, whether you use deception, performance, persuasion, or intimidation. It's also obviously the primary stat for my dashing gnome bard here. Choose how you allocate and utilize your abilities, as they will impact a great many things and it will have long-lasting effects on your ability to play the game. Next, we're going to talk about the actual combat and how the battlefield works in Baldur's Gate 3. The battlefield is at times as important as the actual characters on it, with line of sight and distance sometimes changing the outcome of a battle. You won't always get the drop on your enemies, but you can use skills and abilities to shift the battlefield to your benefit. Think of it a bit like a very, very active game of chess. This is very similar to when you played Larian's previous game, Divinity Original Sin or Divinity Original Sin 2. Thankfully though, Larian has fixed some of the issues, or at least what I think of as issues in Divinity Original Sin 2, where there was an over-reliance on focusing on either one damage type or the other, and really overutilizing the battlefield to kind of control everything. But that's not to say that there's not part of that in this game. You are still going to be needing to think about what you're doing, and you can still cause status effects and things like that by putting things down on the ground, like a Ray of Frost or Grease. Grease is going to be a very, very helpful thing for you, because not only is it a spell usable by wizards, but it's also in containers that you can use, making it so that your whole party might be able to use it. Grease and things like it to send your enemies sprawling to the floor if they fail their save check. While recovering from their fall takes time, you can wail all of them to your heart's content. Oh yeah, and Grease, it can be set on fire too, so have fun, kiddos. The next thing is going to be something familiar to a lot of players who have played a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or have played things like Dragon Age Origins before: camping. It's the thing that I would never personally do by choice in real life, but I'm very happy to do it in Baldur's Gate 3 because it has some very big benefits that you want to take advantage of as often as possible, including some non-min-max benefits of storytelling, you know, part of why the RPG is so big in the first place. Not only does camping, the long rest version in Baldur's Gate 3, allow you to mingle with your companions, like in Dragon Age, but it does one absolutely essential thing. It lets you regain your abilities and health. As you peruse your skills, you'll notice several that require the use of a long rest to use them again. You are being heavily incentivized to camp, with its gameplay benefits as well as its story development, so use it often. There is also the ability to short rest. This is like a half version of this. There's no story benefit to a short rest, but it does help you kind of keep going if you don't want to use your long rest. You get 2 of them right off the bat, and I noticed as I was playing my bard that the bard had a similar effect. So there's going to be other ways to regenerate beyond just going to camping, but it is still the easiest way to do it, and you will get used to using it a lot. Remember to use it as often as you can. Because I mean, apart from anything else, you don't want to miss those story beats, right? Like, you want to get as much story out of your companions as you possibly can. I know I personally do. This next one is going to be more of just a helpful thing to know if you have forgotten about it or you didn't know it existed in the first place. The Alt key is a very, very handy key to remember, as it will highlight items on the ground for you. This can be helpful as there are many things you'll miss if you go stumbling about. It might ruin the immersion of the game a little bit, but it's worth it to find all those lovely little items and rotting corpses to loot. Another helpful key is going to be the Shift key. If you hold down Shift while sneaking, you'll be able to see the vision line of sight of enemies. As this poor soul put it over on Baldur's Gate 3 Reddit, 262 hours into early access, and I have only just discovered this. Do you know how often in a fight I'll think to myself, let's just try and hide and see if I'm hidden enough for it to work or not? How often I think, I really wish there was a way to find out if you can see to know if it's worth using an action to hide. Well, my friend on Reddit, thank you for the 200+ hours that you put in to find this out for us so that everyone who's watched this video can use this on hour 1 of gameplay. Your sacrifice is appreciated. We don't have to talk about how long it took me to find out about the Alt key, 40 hours. That's, it's irrelevant stuff. It's not really necessary to talk about. One bonus beginner tip. Save all the time. F5 is going to be the default save button on PC. Save as often as you can. Do not rely on the autosave. It will autosave. Autosave is going to be helpful. It'll save before big events, but F5 to save is going to save you so much heartbreak, especially when you run into issues you didn't expect, which this game is going to be very good at doing. It is going to be showing you so many things around so many corners that you did not expect to happen. So many times that you'll run into combat or things that you'll do in discussion and diplomacy that actually doesn't work out quite the way you want it to. I'm not saying here you have to go and save scum. Save scumming being that going back and forth and trying different things until you get the options that you want to happen. But it does help to have as many saves as you can leading up to different things. It takes just a couple seconds for it to save, less on a fast computer. Just save often, F5. I'll be doing some more guides like this on Baldur's Gate 3 as we lead up to launch, because this is a game that I have been so excited for years. I bought early access when it first came out, and I've just been enjoying it so damn much. If you're not fully caught up on all the news on Baldur's Gate 3, I covered one of their biggest updates just right over here. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Redbird Flynn, and I really appreciate you being here.